Hi, and welcome to Beings for Societal Progression. I'm Michraél, and this is the very first episode, or the very first take for Beings for Societal Progression. I started this course because I saw that individuals in life, whether they were born in America or whether they were born in Russia or Africa, were bound to a certain set of rules and a certain set of parameters and functionality. And there's a certain curious incident of life expectancy. Well, for some reason, since I've been born, and ever since I can remember being a child, I remember thinking that I will not be a product of my environment. This went counterculture because in America, everything is age sensitive, meaning that for every application, for everything you want to be a part of, whether it's a job, whether it's a community activity, whether it's even just going online, you have to enter your age. So everything has this anxiety about age. And what does this do? Well, this repeated anxiety about age uh, tends to add a stress that is subliminal, a stress nonetheless that is no more real than a dream. And this stress, what happens is people make their decisions based on where they are in the age spectrum. Whether you are a child or whether you're a teenager, whether you are a young adult or a middle-aged individual or an aging individual or even an elderly individual. It shows a progression of a so-called life cycle. Is there such thing as a life cycle? Well, when we look at reality, reality tells us that we're born into existence. Yes, we're born into existence and we grow. We grow to maturity. And after we grow to maturity, then we are considered to be adults. However, there's certain lifestyles that we are exposed to that are not conducive to our continued growth. It is never stressed that after we have developed physically, that we are to actually aid the body in continuing its phases of growth, because we're born with a certain amount of brain cells, certain amount of muscle fibers, and muscle cells, and we have a such thing called muscle memory. And the more we exercise, our bodies tend to stay in functionality. There is an old saying that a body in motion tends to remain in motion, a body at rest tends to stay at rest. It's good for what it's worth, because if we stop living at a certain age, let's say middle age, and we start to count down in our mind and say, hey, it's time to slow down, I don't want to increase my activity, I want to lessen my activity, as a matter of fact, I'm going to cut back on my nutrients. So if you're cutting back on your nutrients and you are decreasing in your daily activity, what you're telling your hypothalamus and what you're telling your brain is, okay, it's time to start shutting down. This doesn't just happen by chance. It happens because we've been programmed in our societies to believe that our life expectancy is such and such. If you are Caucasian, your life expectancy is this. Or if you're African American, your life expectancy is that. If you are Native American, then you're prone to certain type of vices, and your life expectancy is this. And so therefore, if we continue to buy into this type of indoctrination from the time that we're born up until the time that we're adults, it's on automatic pilot. They no longer have to keep sending these messages to us. But indeed, they do continue to show these messages to us, even in the advertising and marketing schemes. In the advertising and marketing schemes, what you see is a representation of what many would assume to be those people at that particular age. And those that are not aging or progressing in quote unquote adult years, or quote unquote aging, the aging process, are considered to be someone that's out of the norm, or someone that is in a minority, or whatnot. But for the most part, what happens is we're given a certain set of parameters. We're given certain set of information that is pretty much it's not objective. It's very subjective. Let's say you live in a high crime, low income area. Well, in the high crime, low income area, they don't have the best supermarkets, so you don't get the freshest food. Not only that, but the type of foods that we import in America, only such and such and such. Why is this? Because in order to control the gross domestic product, then you have to make sure that you have citizens that only live to a certain age. And if you have certain citizens that only live to a certain age, they're only going to reproduce at a certain amount. And we already know that the foods that we eat are processed foods. And there's so much chemical engineering and bioengineering that is done that actually slows down the production of testosterone, that actually boosts the production of estrogen in males, that actually takes away the sexual appetite. And it actually lends more proclivity for women to develop fibroids and certain cancers of, of all of the reproductive organs. The breast, the cervix, the uterus, there's just all of them, all of these organs, all of these reproductive organs, and I didn't even mention all of them. They cause these cancers cause ectopic pregnancies, where the baby is actually starting to develop in the fallopian tube and not necessarily in the womb. You know, they develop breast cancer early. They have fibroids. 100% of my West Indian female friends have fibroids, or they know somebody who had fibroids, or they've had fibroids in the past. But what they don't know is that the fibroids are being caused by the consumption of meat. Because what they are used to eating in the islands, when they come here and eat it, they don't understand that it's been doctored and boosted up with all types of growth hormones, and so it tastes the same, but it's not the same. For all intents and purposes, it's very synthetic. It's bioengineered. It's been chemically engineered, and a lot of these sicknesses that we see, we're told that early detection is the best prevention. But however, the best prevention is not to be subjected to these types of bacteria or these types of chemicals or these type of carcinogens in the first place. We've recently learned, anybody can recently find out that the restaurant chicken has been injected with genes from pig and beef. So when you're eating chicken at a restaurant, you don't actually know that you're actually eating swine. So you're eating a chicken pig, or a beef pig. I mean, a beef chicken pig. So all of these different genes, the amalgamation of different genes, when this gets into the bloodstream, there has to be something that conduces these chemical processes. There has to be a base. There has to be something, a reactant agent. That those agents are not taken out of the meat. Those agents still remain. So those chemical reactions and activities and actions are still happening within the body, and it's reproduced. So whatever the counter effects there are, or the side effects there are, because of these amalgamations and these continuing actions and reactions in the bloodstream and in the chemical processes of ATP and cellular respiration, and how the cells take in the nutrients through absorption, you can only imagine that it spells danger in the blood. It spells danger for the genes that are passed on. So this genetic information that we intake that actually affect our lifespan and actually reduces certain things, certain chemicals or certain gene productions in the hypothalamus, causes people to exhibit the damage that's done to the cells within the body outside the body. So it seems as though because we've seen people progress in this type of deterioration in their skin and in their bones and in their even in their mental decline and their ability to think and reason and all these type of psychological disorders and all these mental dysfunctions, Alzheimer's, it all can all be traced back to either aluminum in the food or aluminum in the products, hair care products or deodorant products, and years and years and years of taking in these toxic chemicals and these toxic combinations and breathing in the gases that come from the factories that produce these toxic and hazardous chemicals. Over time, people's hair will fall out, their teeth will deteriorate, their bones will become brittle, and it's over years and years and years. And so what's confused with lifespan is aging, and what's confused with aging is lifespan. And for the most part, aging itself is a myth. Aging is actually has to do with inanimate objects. Usually when you carbon date bones, those bones are made inanimate. They're no longer living. So you tell the type of aging by the oxidation, how the oxygen has affected and caused the oxidation of rusting upon that particular thing, whether it's bones or whether it's metal or whether it's this, that, and the third. So what's happening is we're intaking free radicals, and our skin is absorbing free radicals at the same time. The body was created to be very, very resilient. And even though we're exposed to this type of environment, hostile environment here in the United States and elsewhere in the world, we can still eke out at least 100 years. But removing yourself from these types of poisonings that we have subjected ourselves to in our food and in our water, and in our environment, when we eliminate that from the table, we find that we can increase our lifespan. Wow, we can increase it profoundly, at least by another 50 years. And then when you go into the area of the psychological indoctrination and the creation of anxiety and tensions because of the social engineering that has happened within the society, when you take that out of the way, and I won't address all of that right now on this first show, but I will address that later on as we continue on, because there's a lot that we need to do to progress as a society. We are beings for societal progression. And in order for us to progress as a society, we must be recognized as a whole. Every part, every ethnicity, every section of our society should be seen and respected and revered as parts of a whole. So what we want to do is we want to include everyone and invite everyone along on this journey of life expansion, because this is the end of the so-called presumed life expectancy for this person, for that section, for these people. We're no longer going to do that. This is a new time, a new era. Information is rampant. There's green energy is popular, and we're going towards the direction of life. We're no longer going to make people rich off of funeral homes and insurance, and make funeral homes rich, insurance companies rich, and all of these things that really is just taking advantage of the atrocity that has happened to humanity on a whole. I mean, we talk about what happened with the Holocaust. We talk about what happened with Iraq. We talk about what happened with so many different areas in our existence as human beings on this planet, but we never talk about the casualty of the many that has been actually uh, bolstering or uh, encouraging the success of a very few people. And those very few people are not even free themselves of the um, damage or the incurring results upon the environment and upon livestock and upon agriculture itself. They've set in motion a perpetual cycle or system of death. There is no such thing as a circle of life. That's a perpetual cycle of death. But we're going to embark on a path of life, a path of enlightenment, a path of elevation, a path of ascension. Because true indeed, we were designed to ascend in our existence, to ascend in our intellect, to ascend in our power of all types, spiritual, physical, and mental. It's about ascension. It's not about race or countercultures or this or that. It's about ascending as human beings, as humanity on this planet.